I am Baville Holloway, and I am 67 years old. At my age, most people picture peaceful twilight years, quiet evenings in a rocking chair, knitting in my lap, the soft laughter of grandchildren drifting through a warm home. That was my dream once, too. I imagined a gentle winding down of life surrounded by love and memories. But dreams and reality don't always meet in the middle. Especially when you find yourself living under the same roof with a daughter-in-law who sees you not as family, but as a burden. It all began 3 years ago, when my husband Winthrop died of a sudden heart attack. We had been married for 42 years. And just like that, I was alone in our home on Cherry Street, a house that had always been a haven now transformed into a museum of memories. Every room, every corner echoed his presence. His worn leather chair in the living room still held the curve of his back. His record collection sat untouched in the study. The tools in the garage hung on the wall with the same military order he had always kept them in. Winthrop was a railroad dispatcher, a man of structure and routine. "Trains don't forgive tardiness, Burvey," he'd always say. He had his finger on the pulse of time. I had my hands in the rhythm of the home. After his death, silence seeped in like fog. I tried to chase it away with TV, the radio, even by talking to my houseplants. But none of it filled the hollowness. My son Jonathan would visit on Sundays, brief, uncomfortable visits that ended almost as soon as they began. He had never been close to his father, and his relationship with me was stuck in his teenage years. Me forever the nag, he forever the sulking boy. So when, one Sunday over a half-eaten lunch, Jonathan suggested I sell the house and move in with his family, I agreed too quickly. "You don't want to live alone, Mom," he said, patting my hand. "Besides, Jocelyn will be happy to see her grandmother every day." Jocelyn, my sweet granddaughter. She was 12 then and so excited when I moved in. We had been close. I taught her how to bake cookies, told her stories about meeting her grandfather at a dance in the summer of 1976. She'd sit at my feet on the rug, braiding friendship bracelets from the colored thread I bought her. I believed I was walking into a new chapter filled with family warmth. But back then, I didn't know Lucy, Jonathan's wife, as well as I thought I did. At holidays, she had always been polite, warm even. "Baville, you look amazing." "Baville, this pie is divine." "Baville, we're so happy to see you." But now I know, the smile never quite reached her eyes. Her compliments were rehearsed lines in a polite play. The house on Magnolia Drive was lovely, a 2-story with a finished basement and a backyard Jonathan wanted to turn into a barbecue haven. I paid for most of it, using the money from the Cherry Street sale. They gave me the first-floor room, close to the kitchen. "To make it more comfortable for you, Mom," Jonathan had said. And for a while, things were fine. I cooked. I helped. Sometimes I'd pick up Jocelyn when Lucy was late at her nail salon, which, despite being a modest little place in Pomona, Lucy talks about like it's the cornerstone of a luxury spa empire. Jonathan worked at a plastic window company, managing inventory. Not glamorous, but stable. Then, slowly, the changes began. First, it was subtle. Lucy forgot to call me to the table when they had guests. She'd make quiet jabs. "That sweater makes you look so old, Baville," or "That color doesn't match your skin tone at all." My cookbooks disappeared from the kitchen, boxed up and exiled to the garage because they took up too much space. My porcelain figurines were removed from the mantel and relegated to a closet shelf in my room. They didn't fit the new decor. Within a year, I felt like a ghost in my own house. Jonathan was always working or glued to his phone. Jocelyn, now a teenager, was busy with friends or locked away in her room. And Lucy. Lucy became something else entirely, a warden cloaked in passive aggression. "Baville, you left your cup in the sink again." "Baville, please don't touch the thermostat, the electric bill is already huge." "Baville, we agreed Tuesdays and Thursdays are my laundry days." She spoke to me like I was a forgetful lodger, not the woman whose money had secured her dream home. When I tried to talk to Jonathan, he dismissed it. "You're exaggerating, Mom. Lucy just likes order." But the order turned into rules. I couldn't watch TV after 9 p.m. It disturbed Jocelyn. I couldn't cook anything with a smell. It gets in the curtains. I couldn't invite my friends over. This isn't a retirement clubhouse. Little by little, my life shrank to the confines of my small room, where I retreated more and more to avoid her criticism. And the hardest part? Losing Jocelyn. Lucy chipped away at our bond with the quiet cruelty only a mother-in-law can truly recognize. "Your grandmother's so old-fashioned. You don't want to be that weird, do you?" I'd overhear these whispers through the hallway as I passed Jocelyn's door. I watched her look away when I caught her gaze. I felt the silence between us grow thick and unbreachable. This year, I turned 67. I didn't expect a party, just maybe a family dinner, a card, a gesture, something. But on the morning of my birthday, the house was silent. Jonathan mumbled a goodbye on his way out the door. Jocelyn rushed to school without breakfast. Lucy stood in front of the hallway mirror, dabbing on another coat of lipstick. She didn't even look at me when she said, "We're having guests tonight. Nothing fancy. Just a little dinner with friends." That was all. No mention of the date. No candle. No card. Nothing. I nodded, even though she couldn't see it. "It would be nice if you made your apple pie. Everyone always praises it." The words, though casually spoken, sounded almost like a compliment, and for a fleeting moment, I felt a slight warmth stir in my chest. Maybe they remembered after all. Maybe this was their quiet way of surprising me. "Of course, Lucy," I said gently. "I'll bake a pie." I spent the entire day in the kitchen, not only preparing the pie but also crafting the dishes I knew Jonathan and Jocelyn loved most. By 5 o'clock, the house bloomed with the warm, nostalgic aromas of vanilla, cinnamon, and simmering stew. Wanting to mark the occasion, I even changed into a soft blue dress, Winther's favorite. He used to say it made me look regal. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to needed, something like important. Lucy returned around 6, arms full of supermarket bags. She took one sweeping glance at the table before commenting, "Oh, you've already done all the cooking?" Her tone was more surprised than pleased. "I bought ready meals from the delicatessen. Everyone loves their canapés and salads." My heart sank, but I kept my smile fixed. "That's okay," I murmured. "More food isn't a problem." Lucy pressed her lips together, her eyes drifting to my outfit with a faint flicker of disapproval. "Are you going to sit at the table like that? What's wrong with it?" I asked, glancing down at my dress. It's very formal for a home-cooked dinner, don't you think?" she replied with a shrug, not waiting for my answer. "Anyway, before the guests arrive, could you go down to the basement and check if the heater's working? Mabel's always freezing. And Jonathan wants to show off the wine cellar." The wine cellar. It was barely more than a glorified closet, stocked with a dozen cheap bottles Jonathan had picked up on discount. But he treated it like a sommelier's sanctuary, endlessly babbling about bouquets and tannins as if auditioning for a television show. "Okay," I said softly, heading to the basement door. The stairs were narrow and badly lit, the walls damp despite Jonathan's half-hearted efforts to make the space presentable. I held the railing tightly as I descended, found the space heater in the corner, and turned it on. A soft orange coil began to glow. Suddenly, I heard the creak of the door above and Lucy's footsteps. "Beville," she called out. "Did you find the heater?" "Yes, it's working," I said, stepping up a few stairs. But before I could ascend any further, the door slammed shut with a brutal finality, followed by the unmistakable click of the lock. "Lucy," I called, tapping the door. "Lucy," the door slammed. "I know, Beville," she answered, her voice devoid of concern. It's just the way it was meant to be. My heart pounded. What? Open the door, please. I'm afraid not, she replied in a patronizing tone, the kind reserved for the very young or the very old. We have important guests coming tonight, and frankly, your presence would spoil everything. Always interrupting with those endless stories about Winther. It's tiresome, Baville. I stood frozen, humiliation mixing with disbelief. But, it's my birthday, I whispered. There was a pause, and then a soft chuckle. Oh, so that's why you're dressed up, Lucy said with mild amusement. The party isn't for you, Baville. We just wanted to get some friends together, and your birthday, well, it's not exactly a notable occasion. The tears came quickly to my throat, but I swallowed them down. I would not let her hear me cry. Not her. When are you going to let me out? I asked, forcing my voice to remain firm. When the guests are gone, she said breezily. Don't worry, you won't starve in one night. There's a heater, so you won't freeze. Just stay quiet. Don't bother yelling. The music's loud enough to drown out any noise. Oh, and I told everyone you're visiting a friend for the weekend, so no one will be looking for you. Her footsteps faded away. I was alone now, locked in the semi-dark basement lit only by a flickering bulb and the weak orange glow of the heater. Rage, betrayal, and helplessness stormed through me. How could she? How could my own son allow this? Had I truly become so insignificant in their eyes? I sank into the old armchair beside the wine rack, my hands trembling, whether from fury or fear, I couldn't tell. Then, suddenly, I felt a small vibration from my dress pocket. My phone. I'd forgotten it entirely. The modest smartphone Jonathan had given me after upgrading his own. Just for emergencies, he'd said. But it was more than that. It was a lifeline. Over a month ago, after a series of disturbing incidents, I'd installed hidden cameras in the house. Small, discreet, and easy to tuck behind books and picture frames. Not out of paranoia, as they claimed, but necessity. First, my pearl earrings, Winther's gift on our 30th anniversary, vanished from my dresser. Lucy's eyes had gone wide with feigned innocence. You probably misplaced them, Baville. That's normal at your age. Then it was my mother's brooch. Then my perfume. Then the ballerina figurine. Each time, the same gaslighting. I was forgetful. I was clumsy. I was imagining things. But the final straw was the disappearance of my diary, my life's companion since I was 17. A thick, leather-bound journal filled with memories, pressed flowers, ticket stubs, and confessions I had never shared aloud. When it vanished, I was frantic. Jonathan's response? It's just a notebook, Mom. No, it was never just a notebook. It was me. That was when Elith from the gardening club stepped in. Her son owned an electronics store, and she helped me install 3 hidden cameras, one in my bedroom, one in the living room, one in the kitchen, all connected to an app on my phone. The cameras would alert me whenever they detected motion. Now, in the quiet dark of the basement, I opened the app. The screen split into 3 views, and I saw the living room already crowded with guests, around 15 or so. Lucy's salon friends, Jonathan's colleagues. My apple pie sat untouched on a side table, dwarfed by the fancy delicatessen spreads Lucy had purchased. I turned up the audio from the living room camera. The music pulsed loudly, but I could still catch stray words when people passed close. "Where's your mother-in-law?" asked a woman with bright red hair. Lucy gave a theatrical eye roll. "She's at a friend's house, thank God. Honestly, it's such a treat to have an evening without her endless stories about my dear Winther." Laughter followed. My cheeks burned. I switched to the kitchen view. Jonathan stood by the counter, uncorking wine. Mabel, our neighbor, walked up holding a small gift. "Jonathan, where's Baville? I brought her something." Jonathan hesitated. She's visiting a friend in Riverside, he said with a casual smile. Mom's been so outgoing lately. Mabel frowned. Strange, I thought today was birthday. Jonathan cut in quickly, his face paling slightly. Oh, right. Yes. We celebrated last weekend. Just a small family thing. Quiet, the way she likes it. Lies. All lies. Last weekend, they'd gone to the coast without a word. I'd been alone, as always. Mabel didn't challenge him, but her eyes said she didn't quite buy the story. Well, give her this when she returns, she said, handing over a packet. It's lavender tea. She mentioned once she loves it. I couldn't hold back the tears. A neighbor remembered my birthday and my preferences, better than my own family. I swiped through the cameras again. Jocelyn sat in the corner, glued to her phone, visibly bored. She'd never liked Lucy's parties. Too stiff, too artificial. Then the front door opened again. A tall, lean man entered, slicked dark hair, sharp cheekbones, an expensive suit that didn't quite match the room's casual atmosphere. My stomach clenched. Drake Camplorth, my financial advisor. Jonathan had recommended him after Winther died, and in my grief, I'd agreed. Drake had shown up every quarter with complex reports, full of graphs and percentages I barely understood. But he'd always reassured me that everything was fine. Now here he was. Lucy greeted him with a warmth that bordered on intimacy. She kissed his cheek and clung to his arm as she introduced him around. But it was the way they looked at each other, when they thought no one was watching, that made my skin crawl. Those weren't the glances of mere acquaintances. I switched back to the kitchen camera. Minutes later, Lucy and Drake stood at the fridge, closer than necessary, their body language whispering secrets. And in that moment, a horrible thought took root. This wasn't just about a forgotten birthday. This was bigger, darker. They hadn't just locked me away to enjoy a party without me. They were hiding something. Something that had already begun to unravel. I sat frozen, my breath caught somewhere between horror and fury. The last few minutes had unraveled a world I thought I knew, a world where trust meant something, where love wasn't a currency to be traded. The emails in my spam folder carried the bitter truth like venom. The sender's name leapt off the screen, Winthrop Holloway Legacy at archivefund.org. At first, I thought it was some cruel spam hoax exploiting my late husband's name. But as I opened the emails, 5 in total, I realized these messages had been legitimate, only redirected as junk. The first email was from nearly 8 months ago. It was brief but searing. Mrs. Holloway, as per your inquiry, we regret to inform you that your husband's life insurance payout was claimed and fully distributed to the account ending in 9945, belonging to Mr. Jonathan Holloway. As the listed power of attorney, he had full rights to manage and access the funds. Should you have any concerns about this, please contact our legal compliance department. I stared at the screen, my pulse hammering in my ears. Life insurance? Winthrop's policy? I never saw a penny of that. Jonathan never even told me it was processed. My throat dried as I recalled the vague assurances. Don't worry, Mom, I'm handling everything, said with that practiced warmth that now felt like acid on my skin. My husband's final gift, meant to secure my twilight years, was spent or hidden without a single word to me. The second email, dated 3 months later, was worse. It included a series of PDFs labeled Client Transfer Authorization Forms, all with forged signatures. I clicked one open, and my heart sank. The handwriting was the same awkward imitation from the investment fund reports. Sharp angles, no fluidity, a child's mockery of my lifelong penmanship. These weren't just betrayals, they were crimes, done with precision and regularity. By the time I opened the third email, I was shaking. This one was a forwarded message, another from Drake to Jonathan. J. Need confirmation on the next move. If we go ahead with the consolidation of her accounts under the Camplorth umbrella, we'll need her to sign the updated consent form. As before, you can forge if necessary. She never checks. Also, we'll be cashing out the lower performing stocks and reallocating to Crypto Fund D. Should get a 9 to 10% return if projections hold. Cheers, D. He signed it with just a single letter. Casual. As if they were moving office supplies, not robbing a woman of her entire life's work. Tears welled up in my eyes, not just from the theft of money, but from the theft of dignity, of legacy. Winthrop had been a simple man, proud of what little we had, and meticulous about planning for the future. He would never have imagined that the son we raised with bedtime stories and Sunday pancakes would help strangers siphon away our security. My chest ached with more than grief. It ached with a raw, primal betrayal I couldn't name. The fourth email was from Jonathan himself, a reply to Drake's previous message. It read, "Got it. I'll bring the paperwork over when I tell her about the new Medicare supplement forms. Shouldn't be a problem. She's too tired to read anything anymore. Lucy says she's been off lately. Maybe we push for early evaluation. If she gets flagged for memory issues, we can fast-track the conservatorship. Also, we should talk about moving the Campbellorth funds offshore." Conservatorship. That word hit me like a slap. They weren't just scheming, they were planning to legally erase me. Reduce me to a ghost of myself while they remodeled bathrooms, bought new cars, and smiled for family photos with fake warmth. And offshore funds? This wasn't amateur meddling. This was calculated elder financial abuse, plain and simple. The fifth and final email was more personal, and perhaps the cruelest of them all. It was from Lucy, sent from her salon email address to Jonathan's work email. It read, "Once she's out of the house, we need to do a full redecorate. Burn some sage, I don't care. The old woman's energy lingers. Also, I don't want Jocelyn getting too attached. She keeps asking about her grandma and it's getting annoying. Tell her she's going on vacation or something. Drake said he might know someone at Pine Hills who can help if your mom gets difficult. He's got friends in the right places. We'll be free by Labor Day. Just hold it together until then. Zoxo." I put the phone down, the screen still glowing beside me in the dim basement light. They were planning to erase me before summer's end. My own son. His wife. And Drake, the puppet master dressed in polished suits and smarmy smiles. They thought I was weak. Thought I'd roll over and let them shuffle me into a nursing home and drain my accounts until I was just another forgotten widow in a floral chair. But they were wrong. My mind raced. I needed a plan. I needed allies. I needed proof. And now I had it. I opened the voice recorder on my phone. June 12th, 10:42 p.m. This is Burville Holloway. If anything happens to me, I want it known that I did not sign any authorizations regarding the Campbellorth Investment Fund, nor did I agree to be placed in a nursing facility. I am being held against my will in the basement of my own home. The following individuals are responsible. I listed every name I could: Drake, Lucy, even my son. I named the account numbers I could remember, the phrases from the emails, the balance discrepancies. I saved the file, then emailed it to myself, attaching every document I'd found. Next, I opened Facebook Messenger and searched for Martha. Sweet Martha Williams, my neighbor of 30 years. She'd seen me through every stage of life. Widowhood. Arthritis. Lucy's sharp tongue. She would believe me. Typing quickly, I sent her a message. "Martha, I need your help. Urgent. I'm in the basement. Locked in. Please come to the back of the house. Don't tell Lucy or Jonathan. Bring your phone. Please. Trust me." I hit send. And waited. My hands were trembling, but not with fear anymore. With fire. With purpose. Let them underestimate me. Let them think I'm just an old woman with failing memory and slow fingers. They were about to find out just how dangerous a cornered teacher with decades of grit and love for her family could be. A grim stillness settles over the room. The hum of the machines pulses faintly, a cold counterpoint to the storm of emotions beneath the surface. Rachel sits in a chair near the bed, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, knuckles white. Lying in the hospital bed is her mother, Elizabeth, pale and unconscious, her breath steady but frail. The room is dim, the overhead lights dulled to a soft halo that casts elongated shadows against the walls. The television in the corner flickers silently, oblivious to the weight in the room. The door opens quietly. Marcus enters, cautious, like a man stepping into a battlefield. His tie is loosened, his face weary but determined. Rachel looks up. Her eyes, swollen from tears, narrow into a cold glare. She stands slowly, not saying a word. The silence is deafening. "Rachel," Marcus says softly, almost reverently, as though the name itself might break her. "I came as soon as I heard." Rachel doesn't move. "You shouldn't have come. I had to." "No, Marcus. You chose to. After everything, after disappearing, you chose now." "I know I have no right." "No, you don't," she snaps, her voice sharp, then breaks. "You don't have a right to walk in here like nothing happened." Marcus's eyes flick to Elizabeth, then back to Rachel. "I heard about your mother. I'm sorry. I should have reached out sooner. I thought, maybe you wouldn't want to see me." Rachel laughs bitterly, wiping at her tears. "You thought right. But here you are anyway." He takes a tentative step forward. "I've been in hell thinking about you. About us." "There is no us, Marcus. You made sure of that." Her voice trembles, but she holds her ground. "You didn't just walk away from me. You left her. You left my mother. The woman who treated you like her own son." Marcus lowers his gaze. "I know. And I regret it every single day." Rachel folds her arms, hugging herself. The cold in the room isn't from the AC. It's from the gap between them that used to be filled with warmth, laughter, and dreams they once whispered into pillows in the middle of the night. "She's been through hell. I've been fighting this battle alone, Marcus," Rachel says, quieter now. "Bills piling up. The lawyers. The banks. And now this." Her voice cracks. "Do you have any idea what it's like watching someone you love fade before your eyes while vultures circle, waiting to pick at what's left?" "I wanted to be there for you," he says, his voice hoarse. "But I was broken. I thought staying away was the only way to protect you from the mess I'd become." Rachel stares at him, tears glistening. "You don't get to use pain as an excuse. We all hurt, Marcus. But we don't all vanish." He nods slowly, absorbing the blow. Then, cautiously, he reaches into his coat pocket and pulls out an envelope. He places it on the table beside her. "It's everything I could put together. I've been working 3 jobs. It's not much, but it might help with her care." Rachel looks at the envelope but doesn't touch it. "You think money fixes this?" "No. But it's a start. And I want to do more. I'm not asking you to forgive me. Just let me try to make things right." Silence stretches between them. Then, from the bed, a faint cough breaks the tension. Rachel rushes to Elizabeth's side. Her mother's eyes flutter open, weak but alert. "Mom." Rachel leans closer. "Can you hear me?" Elizabeth's gaze shifts, searching, then rests on Marcus. A flicker of recognition. A whisper barely audible. "Marcus." He steps closer, tears threatening to spill. "I'm here, Liz. I'm so sorry." A weak smile touches her lips. "About time. You came home." Rachel chokes on a sob. Elizabeth's fingers reach out shakily. Marcus takes her hand, kneeling beside the bed. "I missed you, Ma," he says softly. Elizabeth's voice is strained but clear. Then don't leave again. Rachel watches, her walls slowly beginning to crack. Her mother's grip on life, and on the people who once made it whole, may be fragile, but her love is still strong enough to pull them back from the edge. Lucy's face drained of color as the realization hit her. "What the hell is that?" she screeched, her voice climbing in pitch as panic began to bubble through her polished veneer. "Were you spying on us? You put cameras in our house." Her voice was shrill now, teetering between disbelief and fury. I stood my ground, my hands steady as I held out the phone, the camera footage still playing. "My house," I corrected firmly, my voice calm but cold. "This is the house I bought. With my money. And yes, I installed those cameras. After my belongings started vanishing like smoke, Winthrop's pearl earrings, my mother's antique brooch, my personal journal. Did you honestly think I wouldn't notice?" My voice cut through the room like a blade. Lucy's mouth opened, but no sound came out. She turned to Jonathan, flailing for support, but he looked stunned, as though he'd just woken from a deep sleep. "You have to believe me, John," she pleaded, her mask of control slipping. "She's delusional. That footage, it's taken out of context. She's been confused for a long time. I told you that." Jonathan's eyes flicked from her to the phone screen and back again, the expression on his face unreadable. I could see the storm behind his eyes, the wheels of his guilt slowly grinding into motion, though whether out of love, fear, or shame, I couldn't say. Drake stood up abruptly, clearly realizing that their house of cards was collapsing. "This is absurd," he said with an attempt at bravado, but his tone cracked. "You can't use illegal surveillance footage against people like this. It's entrapment or something." "Spare me the legal arguments, Drake," I said. "You're not a lawyer. You're a parasite." I turned my gaze toward Jonathan, my son, who had sunk back into the couch as if the weight of the room had finally settled on his chest. "And you let this happen under your roof. You turned away while your wife and her lover plotted to erase me. Your own mother." "Mom, I didn't know," he stammered, his voice raw, unsteady. "I didn't know it had gone this far. I swear. I thought she just wanted to talk to a lawyer, not this. Not lock me in a basement on my birthday?" I asked, the bitterness in my voice too sharp to conceal. "Not siphon my money into secret accounts? Not banish me from my own family?" I paused, looking at him. For a moment, I saw the boy he had once been, the boy who used to bring me dandelions from the yard, who used to fall asleep with his head on my lap. That boy was gone. And what was left in his place? I wasn't sure yet. "Enough," Lucy snapped, regaining a fragment of her composure. "This doesn't prove anything. So you recorded a conversation. It's just a misunderstanding. A joke between friends. Drake and I were role-playing." Jocelyn stepped forward then, standing at my side with her small, trembling hands curled into fists. "It wasn't a joke," she said, her voice firm despite the fear flickering in her eyes. "You told Dad to get the forms ready for Pine Hills. You said Grandma was too much of a burden and that we could use the money." Lucy turned on her daughter with venom. "You little—" "Don't," I said sharply, stepping between them. "Don't you dare take this out on her. Jocelyn did what none of you could. She stood up for what was right." As if on cue, the doorbell rang, sharp, assertive. The entire room froze. Lucy's eyes darted to the hallway. Jonathan paled. Drake looked as if he were calculating whether he could escape out the back door. I didn't move. "That will be the police," I said softly, letting the words hang like a storm cloud. Jonathan stood up, almost tripping over the coffee table. I'll get it." "No," I said, locking eyes with him. "I'll get it." I walked to the front door with Jocelyn by my side, my knees aching but my spine straight. Every step I took echoed with decades of pain, of sacrifice, of silence swallowed for the sake of peace. No more. Not today. I opened the door to find two officers standing on the porch, one male, one female, both young, serious-faced, and already aware of who I was. Talitha must have briefed them well. "Mrs. Holloway?" the woman asked gently. "Yes," I said. "Come in. There's something you need to see." They entered the house, and I could feel the tension in the room rise like smoke. Lucy tried to smile, but it came out more like a grimace. Drake stepped back toward the fireplace. Jonathan just stood there, defeated. "I'd like to report an unlawful detainment," I said clearly. "My daughter-in-law locked me in the basement for over 3 hours against my will. I have evidence, including video recordings and witness testimony." The officers exchanged a glance, then the woman nodded. "May we see the footage?" "Of course," I said, handing over my phone. "It's all there. From the camera in the kitchen. You'll see everything. How they talked about locking me up, about taking my money, about shipping me off to a facility without my consent." As they began reviewing the footage, I turned back to the others. The silence in the room was absolute. Lucy was now visibly trembling, her confidence finally shattered. Drake had the good sense to sit down and shut up. And Jonathan, my Jonathan, just looked old. Tired. Lost. Talitha's voice rang out behind us suddenly as she stepped through the open door. "I'm here, Mom." I turned to see her walking in, strong, elegant, and filled with righteous fury. "I've already spoken with the family attorney," she told the officers. "We're filing for a full protective injunction. In the meantime, I've initiated a forensic audit of my mother's financial accounts. We'll find every penny they stole." Lucy sank onto the couch like a puppet with its strings cut. "This is a misunderstanding," she said again, but it was weaker now. "Hello." "No, Lucy," Talitha replied. "This is elder abuse, and you're going to be held accountable." I reached out and gently touched my daughter's hand. For the first time in years, we were standing on the same side of the storm. Jocelyn stepped closer, and I put an arm around her shoulder. "You're not alone anymore, Grandma," she whispered. I looked at the two of them, my daughter, my granddaughter, and felt something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Hope. But what truly seized my attention was the way they looked at each other when they thought no one else could see. Gazes too familiar, too intimate for mere acquaintances. I switched the camera feed to the kitchen, where, minutes later, they ended up standing much too close to each other at the refrigerator. "You're late," Lucy said, her voice light with teasing rather than reproach. "The meeting ran long," Drake replied, glancing over his shoulder. "Where is she?" "Don't worry," Lucy said, grinning. "The old woman's locked in the basement. Thinks it's because of the party. She has no idea her precious son has agreed to ship her off to Pine Hills as early as next month." Pine Hills. The name rang a bell. It took me a few seconds to place it, a nursing home on the outskirts of Pomona. Not a terrible place, but far from elite. That's where they planned to send me, without my knowledge or consent. "Is everything ready?" Drake asked, lowering his voice. "Paperwork, power of attorney," Lucy answered casually. "Jonathan will take care of it next week. The lawyer's already done the documents. The old woman won't even know what she's signing. We'll tell her it's a renewal of her insurance or something like that." "And if she says no?" Lucy shrugged with maddening calm. "Then plan B. You've seen how absent-minded she is. Sometimes she forgets to turn off the stove or locks herself in the bathroom." She winked. "A couple more incidents like that, and even the strictest judge will call her incompetent." A chill rippled down my spine. I never forgot to turn off the stove. I never locked myself in the bathroom. Were they staging those incidents? Had they truly gone that far in their scheme to get rid of me? Are you sure Jonathan's fully on board? Drake asked, voice hushed. He's a weakling, Lucy said, dismissively. Of course, he has doubts. She's his mother, after all. But he wants the house, free of any elderly burdens. And more than that, he wants the money. Didn't you say there's still money left in the accounts? What she didn't dump into the house? Drake nodded. About $150,000. Plus Winthrop's monthly pension and her insurance payouts. Not a fortune, but enough to cover Pine Hills for a few years, and still have some left for home improvements. Maybe even a new car. A new car? My money, saved through decades of budgeting and sacrifice. Winthrop's money, earned with every drop of sweat from his long career. All of it to be spent on Lucy's vanity while I rotted away in Pine Hills? The fury that surged through me wasn't mere disappointment. It was rage. White-hot, undiluted rage. How dare they? How could my own son take part in this? Their conversation broke off when Jocelyn entered the kitchen, clearly searching for something in the fridge. Lucy and Drake instantly stepped apart, adopting casual poses like actors caught off script. Jocelyn, darling, what are you doing? Lucy asked, smiling too brightly. Looking for a soda, Jocelyn mumbled, eyes averted. There are drinks in the living room, Lucy said, her tone brooking no argument. There's only wine and that nasty mineral water. I want a Coke. We don't let her have it, Drake interrupted, suddenly gentle. Isn't that what parties are for? Jocelyn countered, grabbing a Coke from the fridge. Drake gave her a wink, and I caught it, the slight flinch in Jocelyn's shoulders as she scurried out. That brief moment churned my stomach. There was something in Drake's gaze, something predatory. I switched the feed back to the living room. Jonathan was now speaking to a coworker, a heavy-set man in a plaid shirt whose name escaped me. And your mother, the man asked, still living with you? For now, Jonathan replied, sipping from his glass. But we're thinking about a nursing home. She'd be better off there, professional care, people her age to talk to. Is she okay with that? Not really, Jonathan admitted with a grimace. But frankly, she doesn't have much choice. Most of her money is tied up in this house, and legally, it's not even in her name anymore. Lucy's already found a place. Nice garden, decent amenities. Sounds pricey. It is, Jonathan said. But Mom has a pension and savings. And Lucy said she's done enough for us. It's our turn to decide what's best for her. Our turn? Decide what's best for me? After I gave up the home I built with Winthrop, where every corner held a memory, and handed them nearly everything from the sale, keeping only a small safety cushion for myself. I was stunned, overwhelmed by outrage, and worse, fear. If they really succeeded in declaring me incompetent, I would lose everything, control over my finances, my freedom, my choices. I switched back to the kitchen. Lucy was now speaking to a salon friend, a tall, blonde woman weighed down by flashy jewelry. So if everything goes as planned, we'll have the house to ourselves by the end of summer, Lucy said. Finally turn that hideous little room by the kitchen into the spa I've always wanted. Would Beville really be okay with a nursing home? The blonde asked, twirling her hair. Who cares? Lucy scoffed. At her age, she should be used to younger people making decisions for her. You know what she did last week? Washed Jocelyn's silk blouse in the washing machine. $600. Ruined. The blonde gasped, as if I'd committed a capital offense. I told you, Lucy continued. She's not all there anymore. Last week, Jonathan caught her wandering into the kitchen at 3 a.m. I think she was trying to set the house on fire. That was a bald-faced lie. I had gotten up for water. Jonathan never left his room. I would have heard the stairs creak. That's dangerous, the blonde said with feigned concern. What if? She was cut off by Drake entering the room. The blonde quickly made herself scarce. "Your husband is becoming a problem," Drake said bluntly. I mentioned Pine Hills again. He's having second thoughts. Something about his mother deserving better. Lucy rolled her eyes. "He always hesitates. But don't worry, I'll take care of it. He's easy to sway." "There's not much time," Drake warned. "The longer she's in the house, the greater the risk she'll suspect something. Especially with the translations." Translations? That word sent a shiver of suspicion through me. "She won't suspect a thing," Lucy replied. "The old woman barely knows how to use a phone. She doesn't even know how to check her balance online." "Not true." I just preferred old-school ways, bank visits, paper statements. But in that moment, trapped in the basement, I was glad Lucy underestimated me. "What about the power of attorney?" Drake asked. "Has she signed it?" "Not yet," Lucy said. "But Jonathan promised to handle it next week. He's going to tell her it's about her insurance. She always signs whatever he gives her." I clenched my teeth. I had trusted Jonathan. I signed whatever he handed me, never imagining my own son would betray me. But now, I couldn't trust anyone in this house. And if she refuses? Then we fall back on her forgetfulness, her dangerous behavior. No judge will believe an old woman who leaves the gas on or tries to walk outside in her nightgown. "But the money?" "We've got time," Lucy said, smiling. "You've still got it under control, right?" Drake nodded, though I saw the flicker of doubt in his eyes. "Yes, I just don't like waiting. Everything should have been ours by now." Ours? Ours? Did Drake also have a claim on my life savings? Why was he managing my money? Shouldn't it still be in my name? I switched the feed again. Jonathan was speaking to Drake now, clearly tipsy, hair mussed. "Look, Drake, maybe Pine Hills isn't right," Jonathan said, swaying. "She deserves more. She gave us nearly everything from the house sale." Drake rested a hand on Jonathan's shoulder, speaking in his smooth, calculated way. "Of course. But the better places are expensive. And her finances can't handle it. The $150,000 won't last more than a few years. After that, you'd have to pay the rest. And you've got Jazan. College isn't cheap." Jonathan frowned, visibly torn. "I just want her to be happy." "She will be," Drake said. "Pine Hills has gardens, activities, nurses. It's the best choice under the circumstances." Jonathan nodded slowly. He was caving, giving in, and I, powerless, watched it all unfold through the tiny screen of my phone, locked in the basement of my own home. Back in the kitchen, Lucy and Drake stood alone again. "He's wavering," Drake said. But I reminded him about Jazan's college fund. That helped. "Good," Lucy smiled, stepping closer. "I always knew I could count on you." "What else can you count on?" Drake replied with a loaded smile. I turned away from the screen. I didn't want to see what came next. My heart thundered with fear and fury. They were taking everything. My money, my independence, my son, and using him like a pawn. But now I knew. And knowing is power. Winthrop always said that. I wasn't going down without a fight. I resolutely opened the banking app on my phone. I had to know what Drake meant by "under his control." I stared at the login screen, trying to recall my password. Jonathan had taken over finances months ago. "You don't need to worry, Mom," he had said. "I've got this under control." Like a foolish, trusting mother, I'd let him. After several attempts, I finally remembered it. Winthrop's birthday and the first 3 digits of our old home phone. The app opened, and my breath caught. The balance, $2,384. What happened to the $150,000? I scrolled through the transaction history. Winthrop's pension. My modest teacher's pension. Utilities, meds, insurance, those were expected. But there were also monthly transfers, each between $3,000 and $5,000, labeled Campbellworth Investment Fund. I never authorized a single one. I had never signed any paperwork to create something called the Campbellworth Investment Fund. This must have been what Drake meant when he said the money was under his control. My fingers trembled as I unlocked my email. The inbox was a disaster. Dozens of unread messages, mostly junk, advertisements, and spam. But buried among them were monthly reports from this so-called Campbellworth Investment Fund. I clicked on the most recent one, dated just last month. It was littered with financial jargon and indecipherable charts, none of which meant much to me. But at the very end, something jumped out, a scanned copy of my signed authorization to transfer funds. Only it wasn't mine. The signature had clearly been forged. It was angular, stiff, unnatural, completely unlike my own, which had always been rounded and flowing, the product of years spent teaching third graders the art of calligraphy. Heart pounding, I dove deeper into my email, combing through more reports, each bearing the same clumsy imitation of my signature. Then I found something that made my stomach drop: forwarded correspondence between Drake and Jonathan, my son. It appeared Jonathan had been using my email address to communicate with Drake about my finances. In one message, Drake wrote, "Jonathan, per our conversation, I have transferred another $4,000 from your mother's retirement fund to the investment fund. As usual, 10% will remain in your personal account as a management fee. The rest will be invested in our regular assets. The attached form will need to be signed and returned to me for documentation." $400. My son was being paid $400 every month just for allowing Drake to siphon money from my savings. I felt like vomiting. I put the phone down, trying to breathe through the dizziness and nausea. When I finally regained some composure, I returned to the emails and realized that the financial deceit was only the beginning of the betrayal. In my spam folder, where I rarely looked, I found a series of emails marked as junk. But they were from an address I instantly recognized: talakilowait@westcoast.com. My daughter, Talitha. I hadn't seen or spoken to Talitha in almost 7 years. Our last meeting had ended in a terrible fight. She'd stormed out, slammed the door, and vowed never to set foot in my home again. The fight had been over her marriage to Rufus, a man I had always considered completely unfit for my bright, driven daughter. A broke musician with sketchy friends and an even sketchier past. Or so Jonathan had told me. "He's using her, Mom," my son insisted. "Talitha pays all the bills while he finds himself and plays with that third-rate band of his. She deserves better." And I believed him. I trusted Jonathan. He was always the rational one, the reliable one. At our final meeting, I had told Talitha exactly what I thought of her choices. That she was repeating the same mistakes her Aunt Marianne made, getting involved with a man who contributed nothing, who would leave her burdened with children and bills. Talitha had shouted back, accusing me of controlling her life, of never letting her make her own decisions, of being more concerned with appearances than with her happiness. "You don't even bother to get to know Rufus," she screamed. "You judge him based on what Jonathan tells you. And he's always been jealous of me. He's spent his whole life trying to turn you against me." I dismissed her accusations as melodrama. Jonathan was the practical one. If he said Rufus was trouble, then he was. After she left, I tried calling her a few times. She never picked up. Eventually, I sent her an email apologizing. No response. I grieved the loss, slowly accepting that my daughter was gone from my life for good. But now, staring at this long list of unread messages in my spam folder, I saw the truth. Talitha had been trying to reach me all along. The earliest email was from more than 6 years ago, sent just a few months after our fight. "Dear Mother, it began. I thought for a long time before writing to you. Pride told me to keep quiet, but my heart won't let me. I miss you. Despite our differences, you are my mother and I love you. I know you're worried about Rufus, and I know Jonathan has said some not-so-flattering things about him, but Mother, you should know your son never took the time to truly understand the man I married. Rufus is not what Jonathan describes. He's a musician, yes, but he also teaches at the Riverside School of the Arts. He has a permanent contract, health insurance, and his band is more successful than you think. They play festivals. They've released 2 albums. I'm not asking you to love him right away. Just come over for dinner. Get to know him, not through Jonathan's lens, but through your own eyes. And as for money, we share the bills equally. Last year, Rufus even earned more than I did, thanks to royalties from a song that was used in a commercial. Please, Mom. Let's try to make this right. Life is too short for grudges. Love. Talitha. Tears welled up in my eyes as I finished reading. All this time, I had believed she'd abandoned me. And in reality, she'd been reaching out, sending olive branches I never even saw. The next email, sent a month later, read, Mom, I don't know if you got my last message. I've called a few times, but Lucy always says you're busy or on vacation. Maybe you're still mad at me, and that's okay. But I want you to know that I'm here when you're ready to talk. Rufus says hi. He never held anything against you. He says he understands. Lucy. My breath caught. Of course. Lucy had been intercepting her calls, telling her I was busy or away. And she must have set up the filters in my email, sending Talitha's messages straight to spam. All this time, I was grieving a daughter I thought I'd lost, while Lucy was deliberately cutting me off from her. I continued reading, heartbreaking more with each letter. Talitha shared updates about her life, her job, her love. She wrote how much she missed me and longed to have me in her world again. In one letter, dated about 4 years ago, she wrote, Rufus and I are expecting a baby. A boy. We've decided to name him Winthrop, after Daddy. I so wish you were here, Mom. Rufus says it's not too late to fix things. Please call me. A grandson. I had a grandson named Winthrop, named after my late husband, and I didn't even know he existed. A child growing up without knowing his grandmother. The thought hit me like a punch to the chest. The final email was dated just 3 months ago. Dear Mom, today little Winthrop turned 3. He's so smart, so curious. He has your eyes, Mama. Just as blue and piercing. And your smile. I show him pictures of you, and I tell him stories. He knows he has a Grandma Bayville who lives in Pomona. Sometimes he asks when we'll visit. I don't know what to say. Maybe you've changed your email. Maybe you delete these letters. But I keep writing, because I can't bear to give up hope. Time moves too quickly. We can't get back what we've lost. But we can choose not to lose any more. I work for County Social Services, specializing in elderly cases. Every day, I see how vital family connections are for older adults. And every day I think about you. I wonder if you're okay. Jonathan never says much. He always tells me you're fine, but that you don't want to talk to me. Maybe that's true. Maybe the pain runs too deep. But if you ever change your mind, please know this. My door is always open. Love. Talitha. P.S. Here's our new address and phone number. We moved to a bigger place last year. I copied down the number, hand trembling. My daughter had been waiting for me all along. All that time, I thought she wanted nothing to do with me, and the truth was she was writing, calling, reaching. And the bitterest irony of all? Talitha works in social services. She protects the elderly from predators like Lucy and Drake, all while her own mother was being preyed upon by the very same kind of people she fights to protect others from. I turned back to the banking app. I had to know just how much damage had been done. In addition to the regular transfers to Campbellworth, I found other suspicious payments. Monthly transactions of $800 to something called LDC Consulting, likely Lucy Drake Consulting, a shell company created to drain my accounts. Checks written to Jonathan for medication, food, and care I never received. Over 3 years, since Winthrop's death, more than $120,000 had quietly slipped from my savings. The theft had been slow, methodical, like water leaking from a cracked dam. If not for Lucy's carelessness in locking me in the basement with my phone on the day I was born, I might never have discovered any of it. And then, the final piece fell into place. The disappearing belongings. The diverted emails. The talk of nursing homes. It was all part of the same twisted scheme to erase me and steal everything I had. But one thing still didn't make sense. Why would Jonathan do this? A few $100s a month hardly seemed worth betraying your own mother. And then I found it, a draft email, tucked away, from Drake to Jonathan. Jonathan, I wanted to clarify our plan once your mother is transferred to Pine Hills. After guardianship is finalized, we can sell the house. With current real estate values in Pomona, I estimate you'll clear around $800,000. After paying off the $250,000 mortgage and setting aside $150,000 for 5 years of nursing care, you'll be left with a $400,000 profit. As agreed, I'll receive $80,000 as my commission. The remaining $320,000 is yours. Everything will appear legitimate. We'll handle the paperwork to make it look like it's all in her best interest. Awaiting confirmation. Drake. There it was. The real motive. Not the monthly siphoning. That was just an appetizer. The real prize was my house. The one Winthrop and I had built our lives in. The one I bought after selling our family home. A house that had doubled in value. My son had sold me, his mother, for $320,000. That was the price of my freedom, my dignity, the rest of my life. I closed my eyes, letting the pain wash over me. How could my own son, the baby I had rocked to sleep, the child whose skinned knees I had kissed, betray me like this? But sorrow quickly gave way to resolve. I wasn't going to let them win. I had proof. I had the phone. And I had a daughter who defends people like me every day. I picked up the phone again and found the number Talitha had included in her final email. My fingers shook as I dialed. What would I even say? Would she believe me after so many years? Would she think I was just a senile old woman chasing shadows? But I had no choice. I had to try. 1 ring. 2. 3. Maybe she'd changed her number. Maybe she was busy. 4 rings. And just as I was ready to give up, a voice, soft, hesitant, weary, answered. Hello, Talitha said, not recognizing the number. Titha. My voice cracked. It's Mom. There was silence, so deep, so complete I thought we'd been disconnected. Then, a ragged breath. Mom. Her voice trembled. Disbelief, hope, fear all tangled together. Is it really you? Yes, dear, I said, tears streaming down my face. It's me. And I need your help. There was a pause, short, but heavy. And then, as if she feared I might vanish again, Talitha spoke quickly, breathlessly, her voice fragile with emotion. Mom, I've been writing to you for years. I called you. I thought you didn't want to talk to me. I know, darling, I interrupted her gently. I just found your letters. All your letters. They were forwarded to the spam folder. I never saw them until today. There was a silence on the other end of the line. What? But how? She faltered, her voice shaken. Lucy, I said flatly. That's her, right? A bitter laugh escaped from my chest. Yes, Lucy. And not just the letters, Talitha. It's much worse than you can imagine. My voice trembled as the dam of silence finally burst. I told her everything, how I had slowly become a prisoner in my own home, how my belongings had gone missing, how I'd installed cameras in secret to understand what was happening to me. I told her about being locked in the basement on my own birthday, the whispered conversations I'd overheard between Lucy and Drake, the strange financial transactions, the mounting pressure to sign papers I didn't understand, and their plans to send me to a nursing home and sell the house out from under me. Talitha listened in silence, only occasionally exhaling in shocked indignation or asking a few short, sharp questions. When I finally finished pouring out the nightmare I'd been living, there was a long pause on the line. "Mom," she said at last, her voice firm now, focused and clear, taking on the confident tone I remembered from her early days as a social worker. "What you're describing is a classic case of financial abuse of an elderly person. And then there's the psychological abuse. The confinement. This isn't just wrong, it's criminal. And we will hold them accountable." "Do you believe me?" I asked, my voice trembling. Despite everything I'd just said, I was still afraid she might think I was paranoid, losing my grip on reality. "Of course I believe you," Talitha replied instantly, without even a pause to consider. "In my job, I see cases like this almost every week. Sadly, it's often the closest relatives who become the abusers. And what you're describing, it's too consistent, too detailed, too real to be fiction. Besides," her voice softened, and I could hear her heart in it, "I always knew you wouldn't have stopped writing to me by choice." Deep inside, I felt something was wrong. Tears welled up again, but now they were tears of relief. My daughter believed me. My daughter was on my side. After years of silence, of being made to feel invisible, my voice was finally being heard. "What are we going to do?" I asked, wiping at my tears with the sleeve of my sweater. "First," she said, shifting into a professional mode I could feel through the phone, "we have to document everything. You said you have access to the cameras. Keep recording, especially if Lucy and Drake talk about their plans again." I nodded instinctively, though she couldn't see me. "Okay. What else? Can you forward me those letters from Drake? And any bank statements? I want copies of all the evidence in case they find out you know something and try to erase it from your phone." "I'm not sure I know how to do that," I admitted. It had been years since I'd felt confident with technology. "That's okay," she said gently. "I'll walk you through it step by step." For the next 10 minutes, she patiently guided me through the process of forwarding emails and taking screenshots of suspicious bank activity. Her voice remained calm and clear, even as her breathing betrayed the fury and concern simmering beneath the surface. When we were finished, she said, "Now I'm going to call the police. What they've done to you, locking you in, taking your money, cutting off your contact, is unlawful imprisonment, and it's a serious offense. But before I do that, are you safe right now?" "They can't come into the basement suddenly," I said, glancing nervously back at the heavy wooden door behind me. "It's locked from the outside. Lucy said she'd let me out once the guests left, but the party's still going strong upstairs. I don't think anyone's coming down here anytime soon." "Okay," she said, her voice tightening with resolve. "Listen carefully, Mom. I'm going to call the Pomona police and explain the situation. I'll have them come to the house. Then I'm calling a lawyer who specializes in elder protection. We work with him at Social Services. He can file a temporary restraining order to stop Jonathan, Lucy, and Drake from touching your finances." I hesitated. "But the police," I said, fear creeping into my voice. "What if Jonathan or Lucy convince them I'm just a senile old woman? What if they say I'm out of my mind? That I imagined all of it?" "You have proof," Talitha reminded me firmly. "The cameras, the recordings, the bank statements, the forged signatures, illegal transfers. And besides," her voice hardened like steel, "I'm a social services inspector. They'll listen to me." I took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts. And then what? After the police come. You're coming with me, Talitha said, without the slightest hesitation. We have a guest room ready. It's always been ready, just in case you ever decided to visit, or needed us. Her voice softened again, and I felt a painful knot of guilt form in my chest for all the years lost to lies and manipulation. Talitha, I began, my voice breaking. Not now, Mom, she interrupted gently. We'll have time to talk. A lot of time. Right now, we need to get you out of there and keep you safe. She paused, and then added softly, There's someone who's very eager to meet you. Winthrop, I whispered. My grandson. Yes, she said, her voice lighting up. Little Winnie. He knows all about you. I've shown him pictures, told him stories. He asks about you almost every day. Fresh tears filled my eyes. A grandson I had never seen. A grandson named after my late husband. A grandson who knew I existed because of a daughter who never gave up on me, despite years of silence. I can't wait to meet him, I said, barely able to speak through the wave of emotion. And he can't wait to meet you, she replied. Now back to the plan. I call the police, then the lawyer. Then I'll drive out to your house. It's about an hour from Riverside to Pomona. While I'm on my way, keep monitoring the cameras. If Lucy or anyone comes down to the basement, call me immediately. Okay, I said. But Talitha, be careful. I don't know how they'll react when the police show up. Don't worry about me, Mom, she said. Worry about you. Keep your phone close and keep collecting evidence. I'll call you as soon as I've spoken to the police and the lawyer. We said goodbye, and for the first time in what felt like ages, I felt a strange calm settle over me. I wasn't alone. I had a daughter who believed in me, who would fight for me. I had a plan. I returned to the camera app and resumed watching what was happening upstairs. The party was still in full swing, music blaring, guests laughing and drinking. Lucy moved through the crowd, radiant in her red dress, a glass of wine in hand like she was the queen of the evening. In the corner, Jonathan stood speaking with Drake, his face tight and anxious. I turned up the sound on the living room camera, straining to hear them over the noise. I'm not sure Pine Hills is the best option, Jonathan said. I checked the reviews, lots of complaints about the staff and the conditions. Drake placed a hand on his shoulder. Jonathan, my friend, you're overthinking it. Pine Hills is the best compromise of price and quality. Yeah, there are better places, but they cost 2 or 3 times more. And considering how much of your mother's money we've already invested, we have to be practical. Jonathan frowned. I know, but still, it's my mother. She deserves better. Of course she does, Drake said smoothly, falsely sincere. And she'll get the best, on a budget. Once the house is sold, you can always move her to a more expensive place if you want. What about that paper she has to sign? Jonathan asked, lowering his voice. Are you sure it's legal? Drake smiled. Technically, yes. It's just a standard power of attorney form, with expanded powers. Gives you full control over finances and medical decisions. Completely legal, as long as she signs it voluntarily and is in her right mind. If she refuses, we'll have to go through the courts and claim she's incapacitated, but that could take months. Much easier if she just signs. Their voices faded into the background. I switched to the kitchen camera. Lucy was chatting with the blonde woman from earlier. If everything goes to plan, Lucy said, pouring more wine, we'll have the house to ourselves by the end of summer. I've already picked a designer. I want to knock down the wall between the kitchen and dining room. Open concept. Bright, modern. What about the mother-in-law's room? The blonde asked. Oh, that'll be my personal spa, Lucy grinned. Jacuzzi, sauna, massage table. I've always dreamed of it. The blonde hesitated. Is Jonathan really okay with putting his mom in a nursing home? He always seemed so caring. Lucy snorted. Jonathan's a wimp. Sure, he has his guilty pangs, but in the end, he always does what I say. Especially when it comes to money. She lowered her voice conspiratorially. I reminded him that once we sell the house, he can finally buy that boat he's been dreaming about for 5 years. Men are so predictable. The blonde laughed, but there was an awkward edge to it. Still, she said hesitantly, locking your mother-in-law in the basement? That was a bit much. Lucy shrugged. Oh, come on. She was perfectly safe. And it was the only way to have a proper party without her endless stories and wailing. Remember last time? She spent 2 hours talking about how she met her dead husband. I almost died of boredom. They walked off, laughing. But I stayed there, seething. That story, my story, about meeting Winthrop was one of the most precious memories of my life. We'd met at an amusement park dance in 1976. He invited me onto the carousel. We talked until dawn, sitting on a bench by the lake. To Lucy, it was just some tedious old woman's tale. To me, it was the heart of who I was. My phone buzzed. Talitha. Mom, I've contacted the police, Talitha said without any preamble, her voice crisp with urgency. They're sending a patrol to your house. Should be there in about 20 minutes. I also talked to the lawyer, Adam Lawrence. He's filing for an emergency restraining order. No one but you will be able to access your finances. It's only temporary, but it'll buy us the time we need to sort everything else out. I felt a surge of gratitude well up in my chest. Thank you, darling. You organized everything so quickly. It's my job, Mom, she said, and I could hear the faintest smile in her voice. I'm already in the car. I'm on my way to you. Stay in touch and keep recording everything. When the police arrive, they'll call me. I'll explain the situation to them in detail. We said goodbye again, and I returned my focus to the security camera feed. Some of the guests were already filtering out of the house, their laughter fading as the birthday party came to a close. I saw Drake lean in close to Lucy, whispering something that made her frown. She nodded in reply, and the two of them headed up the stairs to the second floor. I didn't have cameras there, so I could only guess what they were talking about. Likely more plotting or worse, something personal. The possibility that Lucy was cheating on my son with his friend made my stomach twist in revulsion. The betrayal ran deeper than I'd imagined. Downstairs, Jonathan remained in the living room, saying goodbye to the last of the guests. His movements were sluggish, his steps uneven. He'd clearly had too much to drink. Mabel, our elderly neighbor, lingered by the door, her voice warm but concerned. It's a lovely party, Jonathan, she said kindly. But I'm still upset I didn't get to wish your mother a happy birthday in person. Jonathan looked flustered. Yes, I'm sorry about that. I'll give her your present when she gets back. Please do, Mabel said. And tell her I'm always happy when she stops by for a cup of tea. She's seemed so withdrawn lately. I worry about her. There's nothing wrong with her, Jonathan blurted out a bit too fast. It's just age. You know, people get more withdrawn. Mabel gave him a look that said she wasn't quite convinced but didn't press further. Once she left, Jonathan sighed deeply and collapsed on the couch, throwing his head back. He looked tired, guilty even. Maybe, somewhere deep inside, my son still remembered how to love me. Maybe there was still a sliver of redemption left in him. But the hope that had started to bloom quickly withered when I saw him unlock his phone and start scrolling, a smile creeping across his lips. Boat catalogs? Yacht club websites? Lucy had mentioned both. My heart hardened. Switching the camera feed to the hallway, I saw Jocelyn, my granddaughter, coming down the stairs. She was dressed in her pajamas, her long brown hair twisted into a loose bun. She tiptoed past the living room where her father sat and entered the kitchen. I followed her on the kitchen camera. She opened the fridge, pulled out a bottle of water, and then paused. Her eyes drifted to the basement door. She stared at it, at the key still in the lock. My breath caught. Could she have guessed? Overheard something? Slowly, Jocelyn stepped toward the door. She looked back over her shoulder, checking if anyone was watching. Then, to my astonishment, she turned the key and opened the door a crack. "Grandma," she whispered.
"Are you in there?"
I nearly dropped the phone. My voice shook. "Yes, Jocelyn, I'm here." The door swung open wider, and Jocelyn's face appeared, half-shadowed by the dim basement light. Her eyes widened as she took in the sight of me. "Grandma," she gasped, descending the stairs quickly. "You're really here. I heard Mom tell Drake she locked you up, but I thought, God, I hoped, she was just kidding." "Alas, she wasn't," I said bitterly. Jocelyn came closer, her expression a mixture of worry and guilt. "This is terrible. I can't believe she did this.
And I can't believe Dad let her."
"Your father is in a complicated position," I said gently, trying not to entirely demonize Jonathan in her eyes, though he had more than earned it. "No, Grandma. Don't make excuses for him." Her voice was stronger now. "I heard them talking about sending you to a nursing home. He didn't argue. He just agreed. Even if he didn't look happy, he still agreed." I sighed. Jocelyn was more perceptive than I'd given her credit for. "You're right. And there's more, dear. They've been taking money from my accounts, without my permission." Jocelyn didn't look surprised. I figured something was wrong. Mom's been buying all these new clothes and gadgets. When I asked where the money came from, she said it was a lucky investment. Suddenly, Lucy's voice rang out from upstairs. "Jocelyn,
"Where are you?"
Jocelyn flinched, her eyes wide with fear. "She mustn't know I'm here," she whispered.
"She'll be furious."
"I know," I said quickly. "Go.
Just pretend you came down for water."
Jocelyn hesitated, torn. "But what about you?"
"I can't leave you here."
"I have a phone. Talitha's already called the police."
"They're on their way."
"Aunt Titha." Her eyes widened again. "But Mom and Dad said you hadn't spoken in years." "It's a long story," I said. "I'll tell you later. For now, please go. Be safe when the police arrive." Still reluctant, Jocelyn finally nodded and slipped away, leaving the door unlocked behind her. I heard her footsteps meet Lucy's in the kitchen.
"Where have you been?"
Lucy asked sharply. "Just getting water," Jocelyn answered, her tone smooth, too smooth.
"I was thirsty."
"What took you so long?" "I was looking for my bottle. The blue one. I couldn't find it." There was a tense pause. Then Lucy said, "Go to bed. It's late." "What about Grandma?" Jocelyn asked, and I held my breath. "What about Grandma?" Lucy's voice was sharp as ice.
"She's at a friend's, remember?"
"When will she be back?" "Tomorrow," Lucy snapped.
"Now go to bed."
The footsteps receded, and I exhaled with relief. Jocelyn was safe, for now. I checked the cameras again. The living room was almost empty. Drake lounged in an armchair with a drink in hand. Jonathan slouched on the couch. Lucy walked in, annoyance etched on her face. "Everyone's finally gone," she muttered, flopping beside Jonathan.
"This party was exhausting."
"You threw it," Jonathan mumbled.
"No one asked you to."
"To maintain my social standing, dear." Lucy rolled her eyes. "By the way, we need to remember to let the old woman out of the basement." Drake snorted. "Why don't we leave her there overnight? Teach her a lesson." Lucy grinned. Tempting. But no. We don't want her to have any real reason to complain. I'll go in half an hour. Let her sit a little longer.
Think about her behavior.
My blood boiled. Think about my behavior. Like I was a petulant child. Not a 67-year-old woman imprisoned in her own home, on her birthday. Just then, my phone vibrated. A message from Talitha lit up the screen. The police are on their way. I'm 10 minutes out. Hang in there, Mom. I drew a deep breath. Soon this will all be over. The basement door creaked open again. Jocelyn stepped inside, now wearing her jacket. Grandma, she whispered urgently. They're all in the living room drinking. Now's the best time. I hesitated. Talitha had told me to wait for the police. But Jocelyn had a point. What if they don't believe us? She whispered. What if Mom convinces them you locked yourself in by mistake? Or that you're not yourself? I stared at her. There was truth in her words. Lucy could be frighteningly persuasive. Even with evidence, the police might brush this off as a family squabble. You're right, I said, heart pounding. Let's end this. Jocelyn helped me up the stairs, supporting me gently. We paused in the kitchen, listening to Lucy's voice from the living room, bragging about her dress and social triumphs.
Ready,
Jocelyn whispered. I nodded, straightened my spine, and stepped into the living room with my chin high. Jocelyn followed close behind, her face pale but defiant. The room fell silent. Lucy froze, glass in hand, her expression a mask of shock. Jonathan lurched upright. Drake flinched, but quickly masked it.
Mom.
Jonathan's voice cracked. What are you? I thought you were in the basement. I was, I said clearly. Your wife locked me there. 3 hours ago. On my birthday. Lucy sprang into action. Baville, don't be ridiculous.
You must have locked yourself in and forgotten.
She turned to Jocelyn, voice razor sharp.
I told you to go to bed.
I couldn't leave my grandmother in the basement, Jocelyn said, her voice hard.
What you did was awful, Mother. Jocelyn, Lucy barked, her eyes flashing. Go to your room.
No, Jocelyn crossed her arms. I'm staying with Grandma. Lucy rose from the couch, anger rising. You don't know what you're saying. Your grandmother is confused. No more lies, Lucy, I interrupted. Calmly, I pulled my phone from my pocket. The game is over. Lucy blinked. What do you mean? I know everything, I said. The plans to send me to Pine Hills. The money you and Drake stole. How you intercepted Talitha's letters all these years. Everything. Lucy went pale, but recovered fast. This is madness. Jonathan, your mother is unwell. She needs professional help. Jonathan looked between us, bewildered. Lucy, maybe we should. Shut up, Jonathan. Lucy snapped. You can see she's delusional. Oh, I'm more than sane, I said quietly, opening the camera app, and I have proof. I turned the screen toward them, the silence in the room thick and suffocating. On the monitor, the kitchen camera footage played, clear audio and video of Lucy and Drake discussing how best to get rid of me and take my money. The room froze. Lucy's face twisted in outrage as her voice pitched higher. What the hell was that? She screeched. Were you spying on us? You installed cameras in our house. I kept my voice calm. My house, I corrected firmly. The house I bought with my money. And yes, I installed cameras after my things began disappearing. Winthrop's pearl earrings, my mother's brooch, even my journal. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? Drake stepped in then, his tone slippery, calculated. Baville, you've got it all wrong. We did talk about placing you in a specialized facility, but it was out of concern for your well-being. And the finances, everything was above board, done with your consent. I laughed bitterly, tapping my phone. Consent? You mean those forged signatures? I pulled up a screenshot of a document, the signature glaringly false. That's not mine, Drake. We both know it. For the first time, his confident mask cracked. Jonathan signed on your behalf with your verbal consent, he muttered. It's standard practice. Liar, I said softly, but with steel in my voice. I never gave any such consent, and Jonathan knows it. I turned to my son. His face was ghostly white now, drained of all pretense. Tell me, Jonathan, did you really think I wouldn't find out? That I'd quietly disappear into Pine Hills while you sold my house and pocketed the money? He lowered his gaze, shame dragging his shoulders down. I thought it was best for everyone. You needed supervision, and Lucy and I. Don't lie, I cut him off sharply. You weren't thinking about my care. You were thinking about the $320,000 you'd get once the house sold. About the boat you wanted to buy. Jossen's eyes flew open in horror. Dad, is it true? Jonathan said nothing, crushed under the weight of the moment. Lucy, ever defiant, tried to pivot. It's all lies, she said, though her voice had lost its former bravado. You can't prove any of this. These recordings could be fake. Who's going to believe a senile old woman over 3 respectable adults? I will, came a voice from the front door. All heads turned as Talitha stepped inside, radiant in her conviction. Beside her stood a uniformed police officer and a sharply dressed man with a briefcase, Adam Lawrence, a lawyer by the looks of him. Titha! Jonathan looked as if he'd seen a ghost. What are you doing here? Saving our mother from the 3 of you, she replied, her voice cold but steady. Then she turned to me, and her expression melted into a warm, tearful smile. Mom, are you okay? I am now, I whispered, overwhelmed with relief. Lucy's expression contorted into a false smile. Talitha, what a pleasant surprise. We didn't expect to see you after all these years. I'm sure you didn't, Talitha said dryly. Especially since you've been intercepting my letters and calls. She turned to the officer. Officer Ramirez, this is my mother, Beville Holloway, the one I told you about. She was locked in the basement against her will by these 3. We also have documentation of financial fraud. Officer Ramirez nodded and stepped forward. Mrs. Holloway, do you wish to press charges? Yes, I answered without hesitation. I do. Lucy exploded. This is absurd. You can't just barge in here. I held up a hand. It's not your house. Adam Lawrence opened his briefcase and stepped in smoothly. According to the deeds, this home was purchased with Mrs. Holloway's funds. While it is technically in her son's name, given the mounting evidence of fraud, that ownership may be challenged in court. He withdrew several papers. Here is a temporary restraining order prohibiting access to her financial accounts by anyone other than Mrs. Holloway. And this is an order to preserve all financial documentation, digital and physical. Any tampering will be considered obstruction of justice. Drake paled, the confidence draining from his face. You can't do this. The investments were made with her consent. Consent obtained by fraud, Adam interrupted coolly. Or forged. Either way, it's illegal. I'm sure the SEC will be very interested in your activities, Mr. Campbellworth. Drake went green. Officer Ramirez stepped forward. Mr. Campbellworth, I need to ask you some questions regarding financial fraud and elder abuse. You have the right to remain silent. As Ramirez read Drake's rights, I looked at Lucy and Jonathan. Lucy looked as if her world was crumbling, Because it was. Her calculated scheme had finally unraveled. Jonathan sat hunched, too ashamed to look at me, Talitha, or even his daughter, who stared at him in disbelief. "How could you, Papa?" Jocelyn whispered. "How could you do that to Grandma?" Jonathan's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't know. I didn't think it would go this far. Lucy said Mom would be better off in a facility, that she needed help." "Don't put this on me," Lucy snapped. "You signed everything. You took the money. Because you gave me no choice." Jonathan shouted, anger finally bubbling to the surface. "You said if we didn't do it, we'd lose everything. Jocelyn's college, the house." "But—" "That's enough," Lucy hissed. "Don't you dare pin this on me. You were more than happy to spend her money on your new car. And that boat." They bickered bitterly, years of resentment surfacing like rot. I stopped listening. Talitha had come to my side, gently taking my hand. "Let's go, Mom," she said softly. "You don't need to listen to this anymore. I'm taking you home." "Home?" I asked, stunned. For a moment, I didn't know where that was. "To me," she clarified. "To Rufus and little Winthrop. He's been waiting to meet you." At the mention of a grandson I'd never seen, my heart trembled. "Does he really know about me?" Talitha smiled warmly. "Of course. I've told him about you every day. He calls you Grandma Burvey. He's been asking when you'd come." Tears slid down my cheeks, this time, not from sorrow, but from something like healing. I still had a family. A real one. Jocelyn stepped forward, uncertainty written all over her. "What about me?" she asked in a small voice. "Can I visit my grandmother too?" Talitha reached out and wrapped her arm around the girl. "Sweetheart, you're always welcome. Your cousin will be thrilled to meet you." Jocelyn smiled faintly, though her eyes still held fear. "What will happen to Mommy and Daddy?" Talitha sighed. "That depends on a lot, on what the court decides and how cooperative they are. But what I can promise is this: you won't be alone. We'll take care of you." As we spoke, Officer Ramirez led a devastated Drake out of the house. Lucy and Jonathan continued shouting behind us, each blaming the other. "Let's go," Talitha said again, her voice tender. I nodded, exhausted but filled with a new peace. One last glance at Jonathan. Our eyes met briefly. In his, I saw the devastation of a man who had lost far more than money. He had lost my love, my trust, and my forgiveness. Talitha gently guided me out of that house, which had never truly been mine, into the arms of a future that just might be. 2 months later, I sat on the veranda of Talitha's warm, sunlit home, watching little Winthrop play in the garden. He had his grandfather's blue eyes, the same infectious smile that tugged at my heart. Beside me sat Rufus, my son-in-law. He was nothing like the lazy dreamer Jonathan had described. A musician, yes, but also a respected teacher at the local art school. Kind, reliable, steady. I was learning to like him very much. Talitha brought out tea and joined us. "How are you feeling, Mom?" "Better," I said honestly. "Every day, a little better." It had been hard at first. The move had left me disoriented, nightmares, anxiety, the sense I was a stranger even in this safe haven. But Talitha, Rufus, and little Winthrop had wrapped me in care. Slowly, I began to feel like I belonged. The legal wheels kept turning. Drake was arrested. Turns out I wasn't his only victim. Lucy was charged with elder abuse and accessory to fraud. Jonathan cooperated, pled guilty, and faced lighter charges. Adam Lawrence had already recovered a substantial amount of my stolen funds. The house in Pomona was still in legal limbo, but our chances were good. Jocelyn was now living with us, temporarily for now. After Lucy's arrest and the divorce Jonathan initiated, it was decided this was the safest place for her. She was adjusting. New school, new routine, new family. Sometimes I'd hear her crying at night. I would go to her, sit by her bed, hold her hand. "None of this is your fault," I'd whisper. "You're not to blame for what they did." Talitha helped me regain control of my finances. We opened new accounts only I could access. She helped me draft a new will and gave me a real power of attorney, with my real signature. "One more letter from Jonathan," she said one afternoon, snapping me from my thoughts.
"Want to read it?"
I hesitated. Jonathan had written weekly since I left, pages of apologies, explaining how he let Lucy manipulate him, how fear and insecurity clouded his judgment. He asked for forgiveness but didn't beg. He knew he might never earn it. "Yes," I said finally.
"I'll read it."
Talitha handed me the envelope and retreated to the garden, letting me have my space. I opened it slowly, recognizing my son's handwriting immediately. I wasn't sure if forgiveness would ever be possible. I didn't know if we could rebuild even a shadow of what we had before greed poisoned his soul. But I knew this much: I would never again let fear or doubt control me. I would not be a silent victim. At 67, I was beginning a new chapter of my life, with the daughter I'd reclaimed, the grandson I was just beginning to know, and the granddaughter I would protect from repeating her parents' mistakes. It wasn't the ending I had imagined for my life. But maybe, just maybe, it was the one I needed. As I watched Winthrop laugh in the sunlight, saw Talitha lean her head on Rufus's shoulder, and felt Joslin's arms wrap around my waist, I realized something profound. True wealth wasn't in houses or bank accounts. It was in this moment, in this family, in love no one could ever steal.